Hello. So I've been listening to this band a bit recently, mainly because I was learning to play some of their songs on guitar just by chance. I was reading a list of drop D tune songs, and they are two or three songs on the list. So sometimes when you play a song, play a band, learn a song by a band, it kind of gets you interested in kind of looking at some of their other songs. So this is Collective Soul. And it's a band I own 3 CDs. Actually, no, I actually own 5 CDs, but I'll show that I'll show it later. But 3 complete with dual case CDs. So they were a band, or they are still a band now. They haven't broken up, but they started around the early 90s. I'd say about kind of 90. Their first album I think was 93, 92, 93. I've actually got it over here. I have the CD of it, but without the case. Hence allegations and things left unsaid. So I, about, right, would have been at 12, 13 years ago, I bought a secondhand double CD of their first 2 albums, and it was really cheap. It was like $1 or something like that. This was at a secondhand music shop. And this is when I wasn't really buying that many CDs. But anyway, in due time, I threw away the jewel case and just kept the discs. I've talked about that many times, but I still own them. So these are their first 2 CDs. So this first one here, hence allegations, things left unsaid, apparently was written as just a demo by the singer, Ed Roland, before the band was even formed. Like Collective Soul didn't exist, and he had kind of written these songs. I can't remember. I think I've read he either wrote them for a band he had, or as he was going to sell them to as for someone else, like almost like as a songwriter to sell your songs for someone else to record. But he didn't end up doing that. And then the one song that kind of kicked off the whole band was that song Shine, which I'd say is probably their most famous song, Shine. Apparently the demo got handed to a college rock radio station programmer, and he or she put Shine onto the rotation list, and it kind of was a common thing back then in the the 80s and 90s, where college rock really had quite a pivotal role in breaking a lot of these bands, is that one person kind of liked a song and put it onto the playlist, and then it kind of got regional fame. I think these guys are from Atlanta, so maybe around Georgia or the South, and then kind of slowly it kind of maybe got picked up by other college radio stations in other parts of the country, and then maybe from there it kind of stepped up, and apparently eventually Atlantic Records got a hold of it, and they heard it and they liked it, and they wanted to sign him to a record deal. And so I don't know if it was like quickly he made a band, or the band had been kind of being made, but whatever, Collective Soul basically formed off the back of that. He thought, okay, I need a band. And yeah, he formed it. Ed Roland with his brother, Dean, I think, or David, starts with D, whatever it is. So him and his brother, drummer, bassist, and other guitarist, because Dean Roland or David Roland is the rhythm guitarist and Ed Roland is the singer. The bassist left, and I know Will Turpin, I know him, he joined not long after this, and he's still in the band now. Anyway, this is not really that important, but that song Shine, I never really liked that song. It was played a lot in New Zealand. These guys were pretty popular in New Zealand, and I think this album, either this one or the next one, the only country in the world where it went number one was New Zealand. They sold millions of albums in America, and I'm not saying they weren't popular there as well. They were hugely popular, but seems to be with certain kind of bands catch on in certain countries, and these guys seem to have a following in New Zealand. And so that song was played a lot. And the reason why I didn't like it at the time, back in the 90s, is that these guys were kind of viewed as, they had kind of like, that song Shine has kind of got a slightly grungy sound to it, but not really. It's a lot more, I don't know, uplifting. If you listen to the lyrics, especially of the chorus, Heaven Let Your Light Shine Down, it's quite an optimistic or a positive song, as opposed to a lot of the other grunge songs. So yeah, I don't know if you could call them grunge. They kind of, even though this term really wasn't in existence, they were more on the post-grunge sound. You know, they had kind of more in common with those bands in the later 90s, I feel, in their sound. But they had kind of like a general alternative rock sound. The guy's voice, Ed Rollins' voice in that song, I didn't really like. That, you know, that thing he does, the kind of the hook part where it's the pre-chorus, and he goes, I didn't like that. And like so many of those bands, there seemed to be kind of a large borrowing from the voices of Eddie Vedder and Lane Staley. And actually, he didn't do that in his general voice. Like when he was just singing in the chorus and the verse, he had his own voice, Ed Roland. But when he does that thing, I can't remember, someone's called it something before, I can't remember, they coined a term to describe that sound that especially Lane Staley did. It sounded like a bit of a rip-off. And so that's how these guys were kind of viewed. They were kind of seen as bandwagon jumpers, not authentic, radio friendly alternative rock. That's kind of how they were seen from my teenage idiot mind. But I'd say what changed my view of them to an extent was their second album, which is this one here. And I think they're actually different. I'll put this disc over here. And I've got two copies. I got this one and I got the one that I showed before. Is it the same? Yes, it is. Okay, it's slightly different. This one is just like that, same color, but this one is got more of a design motif on it with the little spiral in there. The songs on this, if you look at the track listing, you probably recognize quite a few of these. So we've got the ones that were played on TV and the radio. The World I Know, Smashing Young Man, December, Where the River Flows, and Gel, I think, were the singles. And I particularly liked December and Gel, especially December. And I was just listening to that song just about 2 days ago. Like I said, I was listening to these guys a bit recently, and I still really like that song. What I don't like is the song The World I Know. That was really played a lot in New Zealand. And if you've seen the video for it, it's like some guy's going to go jump off a building or something like that, and then he has an epiphany of the life around him, and it's the video is neither here nor there really, but the song is I don't like that song. I didn't like that song at the time. It's very schmaltzy and I don't know, just doesn't do it for me at all. But like I said, I really like that song December. I like the riff of Where the River Flows, which is actually the one I was learning on the guitar. It's got a very simple drop D riff. I can't hum it, but you get the idea. And Gel, I like the riff in that as well. She Gathers Rain, was that a single? Or was that just a really song that sticks in my memory? If you listen to this album in particular, much, I think, a huge step up from this one. This has got some really catchy songs on it, even not just the singles. Like I said, She Gathers Rain. The first one there, Simple. It's a good kind of straight ahead 90s rock album. You know, if you forget about all the stuff I was just kind of casting aspersions on them before about being inauthentic and bandwagon jumpers, I think as just songwriters and all the rest of it. I think this is a good straight ahead rock album from that era. And so there's the band. I think that's Ed Roll in the front. And I don't know which one is his brother. Is it that one there? Well, who looks like? No, maybe it's him. They look slightly similar. Apparently the brother, whatever which one, it's not him because that's Will Turpin, the bass player. And it's not him because, well, maybe it is him. Anyway, there's 10 years between them. Ed Rollins 10 years older than his brother, which is quite, unusual, I think. I guess, obviously like Oasis, I know that Noel is older than Liam, but he's not 10 years older. And what's some other brother bands? The Kinks. I don't know the age difference between, was it Ray Davies and... Is it Ray Davies? Is that... Fuck it, I don't know. Anyway. What was I saying? Yeah, anyway, that song, December, if you listen to that song, we'll look at the lyrics. And this was secondhand, by the way, I should be saying that. This was secondhand, as you can probably tell. I can't remember exactly, but I would have picked this up for $1 max. You can see the booklet's got a little bit of marking on it, and there's that kind of things being dog-eared by the little, as it presses against these things here, it kind of makes an indentation sometimes. The CD's fine. It's a fingerprint on the edge there. But anyway, that song December, I've never even listened to the lyrics before. Like I know the lyrics, like, I could sing along to it probably if it was on the radio in the car. But it's I've never actually like sat down and thought about them or looked at the lyric sheet and kind of read along. But I read an interview or just a part in something, an article I was reading, that Ed Roland wrote this about his manager or the band's manager at the time. You could almost, if you didn't know that, you'd think this was about a romantic relationship. Why drink the water from my hand, contagious as you think I am? Just tilt this, my son, towards your domain, your cup runneth over again. So there he's kind of saying, and from what the article said, you say these bad things about me, but how come you're sticking around? Why drink the water from my hand, even though you say I'm contagious? Take the sun from where I am, and then your cup will run over. Don't scream about, don't think aloud, turn your head now, baby, just spit me out. Why follow me to higher ground, lost as you swear I am? Don't throw away your basic needs, ambience and vanity. And then apparently that bridge part where he says, the December promise that you gave to me, that one wasn't in the original song, but the song was called December. So the band wanted the song to mention December. So he wrote this little part here, December promise you gave unto me, December whispers of treachery. And the idea with December is the last month of the year. It's kind of the ending of something. And he didn't want to just call the song The End or Finish or, it's over. I assume the manager left shortly after or had already left. I don't know. But yeah. It's a good album though. I rate this album. I'm not saying it's a classic or anything like that, but just sometimes you want to hear an album of that time that doesn't necessarily have the grunginess to it, or the kind of more metallic or punk aspect of maybe some of the stuff of the early 90s, which I'm not saying is bad. I'm just saying that's one kind of thing to listen to. But if you want something more kind of straight ahead, straightforward, I think this is a well-written, good album. The one that came after this is my copy, which is a little banged up, you can see. Looks like something cracked it on the edge here, and then the cracks ran down there. This is Disciplined Breakdown, which was their third album from 1997, I believe. Secondhand as well, and again, I would have picked this up for $1. Can't remember exactly when I did, but I obviously did. It's not new, that's for sure. And the booklet here is doing that thing that's really annoying where one of the sides gets caught underneath the little half moon tab. And so you're like, how you can't get it out without kind of distorting the booklet to some extent. That looks like a kind of Renaissance era painting or classical era painting, doesn't it? You can't really see what's... Okay, here we go. Here we got pictures of them now this time. So there's the band. And that's Ed Rowland, lead vocals and guitar, and primary songwriter. Ross Childress, lead guitar. He eventually left the band. He's not in the band anymore. And I was just reading another thing where Ed Rowland was being interviewed by someone, and they were talking about that song, The World I Know, and the interviewer said, oh, you co-wrote that with Ross Childress. And Ed Rowland quite unequivocally said, no, I didn't. That's not true. In the songwriting credits, we said that because we wanted to kind of keep everyone happy, but I wrote that completely by myself. Ross Childress had nothing to do with it. So I don't know if there's kind of some bad blood there between them, but Will Turpin, bass. Dean Rowland, there's the brother. Okay, so maybe I've been completely wrong when I was saying who's who on that one, because he actually doesn't look much like his brother, does he? Or maybe he does, I don't know. Anyway, rhythm guitar. Shane Evans, drums, and he's also left the band. He left the band maybe shortly after this, early 2000s. Produced by Ed Rowland. So they're obviously, he was taking more of a front seat approach to the band at this time, where he's not just singing, but also the main songwriter and now also producing. And maybe that's why some of those other guys left. Still on Atlantic. I don't know how many other Atlantic, maybe this was their last, no, they had another. They had Dosage, which came out with 2099, something like that, and I think that was their last Atlantic release. So this album, I haven't listened to as much as their self-titled one, or as Hints, Allegations, and Things Left Unsaid. But what I have listened to from my general memory, it's actually pretty good. Precious Declaration was a single, I know that. Not a big fan of that song. I do really like the second one there, Listen. That's a good song. Again, it's just kind of like I don't even really know how you would describe it. You know, I've actually read something recently. Someone was talking about that period in Western popular culture of about 1996 through to 2000, or maybe even a little bit before that, 1996 to 1999, where grunge had kind of petered out and there wasn't one overarching cultural phenomenon that was driving things forward. And so there were just kind of smatterings of things here and there. And at least, I guess I should be saying that that's in context of the rock music, because hip hop, obviously there were other things going on that I'm not as familiar with, and probably in other areas too, but certainly in rock music, you know, by 94, 95, grunge had kind of, you know, most of the main players were kind of, like Nirvana was over. Soundgarden, I guess they weren't over, but they would be soon. Pearl Jam had kind of gone off in their kind of anti-rock star direction. A lot of those other kind of smaller bands like Mudhoney and Tad and Melvins and stuff like that, they hadn't maybe done the success that record companies had expected of them, and therefore they were looking for the next big thing. And some of them carried on, I guess, like Stone Temple Pilots, and I guess moved more into that kind of post-grunge kind of thing. But there's also something like these guys that I guess is kind of post-grunge and kind of still had parts of alternative rock, but was just there. And I think a song like "Listen," I think that's a good example of that. It's like, in my opinion, it's a good song, but you can't really, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. You can't really assign it to a particular movement or anything, as much as you could with other music in the past. Does that make sense? Anyway, a memory I have of that song is when I had my first, well, not my first, one of my early jobs as a teenager working in a supermarket. They used to play music over the PA, you know. They still do that sometimes in supermarkets, but not always, I noticed. But they had quite a large playlist of songs. Some of the same ones you'd hear the same over and over again, like Celine Dion and stuff like that. But every now and then you'd hear kind of a song that you didn't expect. I remember they used to play that song "Listen," and this would have been about 1997, like about the time when this was released. And I always liked that song. And I listen to it now, I still like it. But I think each of the preceding albums have done platinum. Like I think their first album did like double platinum or triple platinum, and the same thing with this. I think this went triple platinum. I think this sold 1 million, but maybe obviously not as much as the previous ones, because like I said, that musical phenomenon was kind of slowly dying out. Lastly, what I own is a greatest hits compilation. Excuse me. Called The 7 Year Itch. What is it? The 7 Year Itch. There's a movie called The 7 Year Itch, isn't there? I've never actually seen it. But the concept of the 7 Year Itch, what does that mean? To be that when you're in a relationship, after 7 years, one or both of the people in the relationship are supposed to get a inkling or a sensational urge to want to explore outside of the relationship. And so that's when a lot of, what do you call it, marital problems, or I guess extramarital affairs, happen around the 7 year mark, apparently. Don't know if that's true, but so all the songs you would expect to be on this compilation are on this compilation. So what do we got? Heavy, She Said, Shine. What I notice here, Run, Gel, Perfect Day, Precious Decoration, Why, The World I Know, Next Home. Actually, what I just said all the songs you expect. Actually, not all the songs I expect. Where's the song Breathe? Remember, Breathe, that was also on the very first album. The Hints, Allegations, and Things They Found Said. Breathe is track 10. That was released as the second single, and for me, that's kind of one of the, that's a good representation of that first album, that together with Shine, but they haven't included it here. That's interesting. They also haven't included Where the River Flows, which is one of their best riffs. Instead, they put things like Forgiveness and Perfect Day featuring Elton John. Or was that like I have listened through to this, but I can't remember. Is that a cover of the Lou Reed song? God help us. No, it's not. Okay. It's not the Elton John one. It says it's... So they're putting the 2001 Energy. That's from Dosage. They're putting that on the album, on the Greatest Hits album, but they're not putting... Look, Heavy, She Said. They're putting all this like much later stuff when they were nowhere near as big. Fucking bizarre. It's weird how bands do that. Why Part 2 from 2000? It's like... Are you that goddamn unconscious of your own career and what it was and how it's structured? Bands do that though, don't they? I know that sometimes bands don't have any part of compiling their greatest hits, but if I've seen bands who do have a part in compiling their greatest hits, and they often don't put their biggest songs on or their bigger songs on because they just don't like them or they kind of feel a bit embarrassed by them now, and instead put songs from more recent albums because they feel that's a better representation of their songwriting skills. And it's like, dude, that's not how it works. It's meant to be a greatest hits. It's meant to be the ones that were played on the radio and or you had videos for and that kind of made you famous. It's not the ones that you feel are, a representation of you. Because the thing is, the people who would buy a greatest, I got the second hand, obviously, but the people who buy a greatest hits compilation, they don't, that's what they want. You're kind of ripping them off a little bit if you're putting on fucking deep cuts from your most recent album. Because this came out, when did this come out? I'm trying to see the date. Executive producer Ed Roland. I think I go power hungry maybe. 2001. So there were songs on here from 2001 and 2000, which was the most recent albums. So that kind of annoys me. Not because I've got the only album. It's not like I'm annoyed. It's the arrogance and the ego of the guys to do that. Because that wouldn't, if it was a record label, if Atlantic was compiling that, they would just want to sell as many as possible. And the way to sell as many as possible was put all the songs that people know already, so that they're in the record shop and they say, oh, Collective Soul, I like that one song by them, Shine. Oh, I wonder, oh, that's right, they also had that other song called fucking whatever, Breathe or December or Gel. And so they look at the back and go, oh, all the good songs, oh no, there's no Breathe. And what the fuck is Next Homecoming? And Why Part 2? That's from 2001. I didn't even know these guys were still together. Oh, I'm not going to buy that. But Ed Roland, who's the executive producer, is basically, he's said that he doesn't like, well, not that he doesn't consider this to be a Collective Soul album. Hence, because it was a demo written before the band, and I can understand that. However, it's put out under their name, and that's what the general public know it as. So don't get cute, Ed. Am I overreacting? To wrap this up, these guys actually toured here in New Zealand earlier this year. And if they had played a show by themselves, I would have absolutely gone to see them play. But they didn't play it. They played, which is something that is I'm noticing. The only time a lot of these kind of 90s bands come down here to New Zealand is on these nostalgia tours. So I think it was last year, Stone Temple Pilots came. Now I used to love Stone Temple Pilots. I know a lot of people don't like Stone Temple Pilots, but in the 90s, Core, Purple, especially Purple, Tiny Music, I loved those albums. That band was big for me as, I won't say a Soundgarden, but they're like kind of up there. And so when they come, they never toured in New Zealand because Scott Weiland couldn't get his shit together. They never toured down here during their prime. Never got a chance to see them. So he's passed away, of course, but I would have still liked to have seen the DeLeo brothers live because those guys are fucking great songwriters. It would have been a bit of a bummer, to be honest, to see the band without Scott Weiland. But anyway, the chance didn't really present itself because they came down here on some nostalgia tour together with, they're playing with ZZ Top, and I like ZZ Top, but I don't know. Who else? Like Simple Minds, I think. You remember them from the 80s? Don't You Forget About Me? And they don't play in the city when they come on these nostalgia tours. They play out in these like weird, kind of like what we call holiday towns, like Taupo and fucking Queenstown. And it's like, to get there is like a 5-hour drive at least, if not a bloody plane ride, if it's Queenstown. And then it will cost a fortune because there's a holiday town. So people go there during the summer to go on holiday. And so all the accommodations booked out months in advance. And so all the prices are hiked up to God knows where. And so it's just an unrealistic fucking thing to do, to be traveling for a couple of days to go and see these bands that I kind of want to see from 2 decades ago. And the same thing this year, Collective Soul, who did they come with? It was worse, ZZ Top is a band I would actually like to. It wasn't ZZ Top, it was like someone fucking like Rod Stewart or something. Like really, someone I had no interest whatsoever in seeing. But Collective Soul were part of that tour, and I would have really have liked to have seen Collective Soul. They had come and played kind of like a mid-level, but I can understand if they came here and played like the Power Station, which is like 1,000 capacity venue in Auckland, they wouldn't make much money. Bands that are doing that are younger bands that want to kind of get a name for themselves, so tour. Whereas a band like Collective Soul, who are past that, they just want to get the big bucks, and so they play these festivals or these nostalgia tours. But it's a bummer because that's the only chance I ever get to see them, and now I don't think they'll ever come back to New Zealand. But yeah, I didn't see them. I would have liked to have seen them. Anyway, that's half an hour of me blabbing about Collective Soul. Of the 1, 2, 3 albums plus, well, that's the same one. So kind of 3.5, 4 without jewel cases. Anyway, hopefully that was at least somewhat informative or entertaining. Not educational, because someone had a go at me in one of the comments a few videos ago that I made a mistake and that when I'm trying to educate people, I should get my shit together or something like that. And I responded, well, I'm not, who said I'm trying to educate anyone? Be aware that I'm just saying, most of the time when I'm talking, I'm just talking from memory. Things that maybe I've read the article recently, but a lot of the times it's things I've read years ago or heard in interviews years ago or read in a biography years and years and years ago. And I'm just kind of recalling it off the top of my head. So yeah, expect things to be wrong. I don't know my ass from my elbow, which is a problem, as you can imagine. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Thank you.